Who is Satoshi Nakamoto? Nobody knows. Although a new HBO documentary says that they have found the secret to Satoshi Nakamoto and who's behind the pseudonym. Can we finally put this secret to rest? Well, stick around and we're going to find out in this episode of The Centbee Show.
Yeah, man, we're just missing popcorn now.
It's been happening on HBO. They just released this huge documentary.
It was released on the 8th of October.
That's right. Yeah. And it promises to expose who the real Satoshi Nakamoto is, the inventor of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
It's pretty exciting. This has been the biggest mystery in the whole history of Bitcoin. Who is Satoshi Nakamoto? It's a mystery that is a mystery to some. It's a mystery to people who don't want to know about Satoshi or who he is. He just disappeared out of the ecosystem without a trace. And since the beginning of Bitcoin, for 15 years, people have been wanting to know who is Satoshi Nakamoto.
And it's quite funny, Ms. G, because these disappearances, people assume that they can claim being Satoshi.
Yes, we're all Satoshi, right?
That's what they push, and we all know that's a blatant lie.
People who say we are all Satoshi, that's a little bit cheeky, right? Because what about the real Satoshi? He deserves the respect and the credit for building Bitcoin, but now we are all Satoshi, so we all get the credit.
Straight up, yeah, and that such mindset, Ms. G, doesn't work in the real world where you just take credit for something you didn't put in work into.
Exactly. Don't take credit for what you haven't done. That's right. So I'm not going to call myself Satoshi. I know that the real Satoshi deserves to get all the credit and the Nobel Economics prizes and all the things that people have said over the years about Satoshi.
Most there.
But I'm not Satoshi.
But we are Satoshi soldiers. Yeah.
So we're going to watch this movie. Get your popcorn out. It promises to be a good one. There's going to be some secrets unveiled.
Yeah.
The mysterious creator is going to be exposed. We're all going to finally get this subject put to rest.
Yeah, so grab your popcorn and slush, kick back on your recliner. This one's going to be a dope one, yo.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Centbee Show. I'm your host Lorien Gamroff and my co-host is Kage, not Satoshi, Inchangila. Kage, welcome to the show.
So Ms. G, but Satoshi soldier.
Yes, we're not all Satoshi, we are all Satoshi soldiers here on the Centbee Show.
Straight up.
And we've been watching this documentary by HBO that promises to unveil the secret of Satoshi Nakamoto, the inventor of Bitcoin.
I think this one is quite a big docu because, I mean, for the past years, we haven't had this type of content that actually tackles the subject. You might want to stick around because this is kind of a hot one, yo.
So this is a new documentary by HBO that you can watch today. It came out on the 8th of October. And in this documentary, it goes through all the potential people who could be Bitcoin's inventor, Satoshi Nakamoto, and even promises to unveil the real Satoshi Nakamoto. Can we finally put the secret to rest?
I really hope we can.
Now, the interesting thing about this documentary is that it has interviews from a lot of different people. Obviously, a lot of people in the Bitcoin space, specifically the BTC space, because it's important to remember that there are many different versions of Bitcoin. And what we support is the Bitcoin Satoshi Vision Protocol, or the BSV version of Bitcoin. What is that? A couple of years ago, the Bitcoin community split because one part of the community wanted to change the Bitcoin protocol, and another part of the community said, no, we need to keep Satoshi's protocol set in stone. That's what Satoshi said, right?
Straight up.
And there's a lot of good reasons for having a protocol that is set in stone. Obviously, if we want to be able to use it as a business, or if people want to adopt a protocol, if it changes, you have to then change your programs and your code and your business.
And that's not sustainable.
That's why for people who are interested in Bitcoin as a commercial tool, something that can bring opportunities to your business, that can enable new business models. If we are going to be using a protocol that's just going to be changed on the whim of these developers, then how can we have the confidence to be able to build applications on top of that protocol? The whole idea around Bitcoin SV is that it is a fixed protocol. So this documentary doesn't interview anybody who is interested in Satoshi Nakamoto's protocol version of Bitcoin. These are going to be people who've been very much involved in pushing the idea of BTC as Bitcoin. So even though this is a documentary about Bitcoin and Satoshi Nakamoto, Bitcoin's creator, this is not actually a documentary about the Bitcoin that was created by Satoshi Nakamoto.
The original.
That's right. The developers and the people that are interviewed here, they are advocating for the BTC version of Bitcoin, which is an altered version. It has features like replace by fee and segregated witness, things that are fundamentally different from what Satoshi Nakamoto wanted in Bitcoin. This documentary doesn't cover, of course, anybody who's focused on Satoshi's vision.
Definitely, they wouldn't.
No, they wouldn't. So we're going to give the Satoshi's vision perspective on this whole documentary.
Yeah.
There's an interview with guys like Nurul Rabini, who is a great Bitcoin skeptic. Dr. Doom, he was known as.
The boomers.
The boomers, when he's talking about Bitcoin, when he's talking about crypto, he's talking about BTC.
Definitely, Ms. G. And it's quite important that we tackle such content because it's easy for the BTC space to push their narratives like they've been.
The movie starts off with a bunch of quotes from guys like Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan, a bunch of news inserts there talking about Bitcoin is dying. Some economist quotes about Bitcoin is not money, doomed to fail, and all that kind of stuff. And at the same time, it's then showing you the prices at the time when those statements were made. And really the idea there is to show you that in spite of all these naysayers, these apparently smart investor types, people who are really experienced in the financial world, dealing with investments and finance and all that kind of stuff.
The way they actually format it, it's like, look at how wrong all these knowledgeable guys are.
That's right. I mean, Jamie Dimon talking about Bitcoin as a scam at 23 cents.
I mean, even Trump, there was prominent people actually who were against,
who
are against BTC. In this case, Trump has changed his tone.
Yes, exactly. He's changed his tone. That's right. He's trying to now get the Bitcoin votes. They go through this whole process of showing all these statements over the years, how crypto is dying, how Bitcoin is useless, and then interspersing it with the price at the time those statements were made. So just to show the audience how wrong these guys are. As if the price increasing over time is demonstrating how wrong they are. In this case, confusing price with value. In fact, right at the end there of that title sequence, they then say that Bitcoin is now the 10th most valuable asset in the world. Now, we have often gone and said, look, there's a difference between price and value.
Huge difference.
Just because the price is increasing, it doesn't mean that all these guys are wrong about Bitcoin, BTC,
value
not being money and not being valuable. The price is no indication. The price of something can go up without it being valuable. For them, price is value. There's that saying, price is what you pay, value is what you get. And when you have BTC, you don't have a valuable token. What you have is a speculative token. In other words, people are going to be assuming or hoping that if they buy Bitcoin BTC, that somebody else is going to buy it at a higher price. Misdirection, trying to show you that even though the price has been increasing in spite of all this naysaying, they think this is now demonstrating how wrong these boomers are. But all it's showing is how overvalued and how expensive this BTC crypto asset is.
Also, Ms. G, every single one of those statements were out to be true because it's not gold. It's not what they try to make it seem. We know that Bitcoin from inception was meant to be peer-to-peer cash. So all these ideas and narratives that they push are far from the real idea.
The one guy, I think it was Jim Rickards, he says, it's not money. Whatever it is, it's not money.
It's not money.
And that's because you can't spend it. The fees are too high. The blocks are too small, so you can't get your transactions reliably processed inside a block because BTC has the 1 megabyte block cap. So these guys rightfully are saying, look, whatever BTC is, it's not money. Don't treat it like money. And of course, nowadays with BTC, they're talking about it being gold because they acknowledge now that money should be at least be some kind of medium of exchange. Clearly, to me, all these boomers are speaking the truth, and yet they're trying to shove price in their faces to show them how wrong they are. Then it gets into who is Satoshi Nakamoto. One of the most important things that is mentioned is that if Satoshi was to re-emerge, then it could break the system. I'm going to say that is probably the most important statement in this entire documentary. It even comes up a few times. People have been asked in the past, what if Satoshi comes back? What if he comes now and he wants to spend his 1,000,000 Bitcoins? There's even tools that you can download and run that tell you if any of the early coins that Satoshi Nakamoto mined are moved. In other words, maybe he's sending it to an exchange or he's doing something with it.
Yeah.
And this is the big nightmare of people who are in BTC.
I can imagine.
If Satoshi comes back and now he wants to go and dump 500,000 Bitcoins, BTC, it's going to destroy the market.
It's going to tank.
If one little coin gets moved out of those Satoshi wallets, people are going to have a heart attack. Because now, does that mean Satoshi is going to dump it on the market and destroy the price? And this is one of the most important things about BTC and the people behind it, is they don't want Satoshi to come back.
But that's so ironic, Mr. G, having to pay homage, building a statue.
They want him to stay hidden. They want him to stay a statue.
Yeah.
They don't want Satoshi to come back. You'll see that very often they say Satoshi can't come back, because if he was to come back, not only would he disrupt the entire Bitcoin BTC market, but because in their minds Bitcoin was meant to be this anarchist tool, something that was unstoppable, unconfiscatable, they say Satoshi is hidden. Why? Because if he was to come back, then he would be the most targeted person on earth. Governments, people would come want to arrest him.
It makes sense why they would actually put it that way,
Only because they believe BTC is a crypto cypherpunk tool. You see, they have this concept that Bitcoin is dangerous to the establishment. And in fact, in this documentary, there are many times people are going to quote that BTC is there to undermine the system. And they say that if Satoshi comes back, he is going to be arrested, he's going to be thrown in jail, kind of like Julian Assange. They're going to shut him up, they're going to lock him away, and that's why Satoshi is being so careful to not reveal himself. So it's just that mindset. Satoshi has created a cypherpunk tool. It's dangerous to the establishment. It's there to undermine the establishment. And so he is going to remain hidden. Also, and they won't say it, we don't want him to come back because it means it's going to destabilize the whole market. And also, what happens if Satoshi comes back and he's not who we expected him to be, and he's not the kind of person that we wanted him to be? There's this whole mythology now that's been created, this anonymous coder guy who built this technology. What happens if Satoshi comes back and he's this CIA agent or something? So this idea of having a statue and talking about how dangerous it is for Satoshi Nakamoto to reveal himself, this is their wishful thinking. They are hoping and praying that Satoshi is dead and they can keep him as a statue where he'll sit quietly, neatly in his little corner and he won't kick up a fuss, and they can idolize him and he won't ruin their fun.
Which makes sense. I mean, hence the statement, we are all Satoshi. It takes away from actually the original creator.
It sure does. What they often say is that it doesn't matter if Satoshi never reveals himself. Bitcoin is here. We don't know who invented the wheel, but the wheel is here and it's useful to us.
We don't care about him.
So they've got all these conflicting statements. They're saying it doesn't matter who Satoshi is. They're also saying that if Satoshi was to reveal himself and come back, suddenly people would be afraid now that he's going to dump his coins. The temptation must be great. He's holding billions of dollars worth of BTC. He could become the first trillionaire. Also, he could be somebody that they don't want. And that's a very important point.
Because actually now it makes sense, Mr. G. It's sort of like fake homage. They'd rather keep him as a mythical character versus paying respect to the real Satoshi.
Yes, because remember, the whole idea of BTC now is changed. It isn't the same idea that Satoshi Nakamoto had. Remember, he wanted peer-to-peer electronic cash.
Simple.
Low cost, massively scalable. So that's not what Bitcoin BTC is today. It is digital gold, it's maximally decentralized, it has limited blocks, massive fees, it can't be used as cash. So imagine now if Satoshi came back and said, guys, this is not my invention, you've taken my invention.
Satoshi now has become the threat to the system. The documentary, there's a part where it speaks of Bitcoin as cash. And we know that the BTC side or crowd has never spoken of or acknowledged Bitcoin as a form of cash in any way.
That's right. Not in the last couple of years since the fees have gotten so high.
Yeah.
With that smaller block size, the megabyte block cap, it means that only a certain number of transactions can be processed every 10 minutes. And that means miners are incentivized to always collect transactions with the highest fees, meaning that the average fee per transaction is extremely high in BTC. So even though Bitcoin, the white paper, Satoshi Nakamoto, came out talking about digital cash, low-cost transactions, and of course this documentary is trying to explain Bitcoin. So it's talking about money, it's talking about currency, it's talking about cash. We know that Bitcoin BTC can't be used as cash. That's why the language is now gold. And gold is something you buy and you stick in a vault and you hodl it. And so that's what BTC is for. And also they say things like it was meant to be uncontrollable and
unconfiscatable.
The idea of Bitcoin was that it was meant to be regulatory compliant, but also if you do get robbed, you can get your money back.
That's how the current financial system works. If there's ever a crime that happens, it can be traced. So how do people like your Michael Saylor and all of these prominent guys ignore all of that and just push this BTC narrative?
Because they are just hoping that the hype bubble keeps expanding, that institutional investors, governments start buying BTC so that the price can increase. They got nothing to do with cash. This is about an asset, digital gold. In their mind, of course, the typical tropes about it being unconfiscatable, uncensorable, not your keys, not your coins. This is what BTC is trying to put across. Meanwhile, Bitcoin SV, it was meant, as you say, to comply with the rules, but also, like the normal financial system, if you get robbed, there is a way to get your money back. And of course, in BTC, they don't want to acknowledge that.
BSV is straight up money for the people, Mr. G, not BTC.
So you can see how this hype bubble has not been about a technology that can transform the world. It's about getting rich.
They expose their agenda all the time. Like if you listen carefully, you'll actually hear it out.
The price appreciation of Bitcoin has had nothing to do with adoption, with innovation, with technology that's transformative. It's all had to do with speculation.
For the past 15 years already.
That is what has been driving the Bitcoin boom.
That's some serious regression.
So Samson Mow, he works for a company called Blockstream, which is a company that has hired basically the top BTC developers out there in the world. And what they're trying to do is try and build scaling solutions for BTC because BTC can't scale. So they are focused on things like Lightning or what's called side chains. And the whole business model of Blockstream is to try and create technology that will help BTC scale. Samson Mow, he's some kind of advocate working at Blockstream.
They say Bitcoin ambassador.
Bitcoin ambassador. And he goes around the world trying to convince governments and that to buy Bitcoin. But, you know, a very important thing in the documentary is he is sitting on the helicopter, in a helicopter with Ricardo Salinas. He's the third richest man in Mexico. And he's trying to convince this guy to use his power plants to mine Bitcoin. And very importantly, the conversation comes up, and this is the conversation that everybody has when they first hear about Bitcoin. Who is Satoshi? And what about his coins? But what's interesting is that this is what BTC people do, is they want to deflect that question. Samson says, don't worry about it.
That's so insulting to a potential investor. He's asking a valid question, and here you are just brushing it off like, it's not that important.
Well, this is the thing about people in BTC. They know that this is a huge issue. Not only who is Satoshi Nakamoto, but what about his coins? There's 1 million of them out there. They are sitting there. And Samson says what everybody else in BTC will say is, don't worry about it. What do you mean, don't worry about it?
Honestly, Mr. G, I mean, I'm an investor and you're telling me not to worry about it? No way.
It's like this hopeful thing, like, what did he do with the coins? Oh no, he threw away the key. How do you know?
He's so nonchalant, Samson Mow, with the way he explains all of these things. There's no way, like, you would put your money even if you were convinced by a guy like that.
Yeah, no, he doesn't come across as especially transparent.
Yeah, and the funny thing Ricardo said was he's not convinced that Bitcoin mining is like a proper business for him.
Yes.
Rather buy.
Just speculate on the token. So here we go. This is a perfect example of this kind of denial from people in BTC. that Satoshi Nakamoto represents a real risk and his coins sitting there represent a real risk. All of them will say, don't worry about it. Just, it's okay. It's going to be okay. Satoshi's dead.
He threw away the key.
Even if he's not dead, he doesn't want to spend his coins. I mean, he's been sitting there for 15 years watching his coins go up to billions of dollars. Don't you think he'd be ever tempted to just maybe spend a couple bucks? For them, they think, well, he must have died, because who could resist that temptation? So let's just make that assumption. Stay calm and keep on buying and stacking sats. Don't worry, Satoshi's coins and Satoshi are dead and gone.
I know that money is part of our daily lives, but the way these guys are going on about it is clearly like a worship, because having to look at it as they wouldn't resist that temptation, it just shows that they're in it for the bucks more than anything, man.
He makes a statement which is quite different from the kind of statements that people in BTC will make. He says there that anytime government wants to shut something down, they'll shut it down. And so the narrative around BTC is that you can't shut it down.
Yeah.
It's decentralized, right? He just drops that in at the end. Now that is true for BSV, and in fact it's true for all these blockchains and cryptocurrencies.
All of them.
But remember, Satoshi Nakamoto wasn't trying to create a system that couldn't be shut down. That's one of the big false myths around BTC.
Yeah.
And the false myth around Bitcoin is that it was meant to be something that was uncontrollable, unconfiscatable. But we all know, when we look at mining, that is how Satoshi Nakamoto built accountability into the system. Because if government wants to freeze funds or they want to seize funds, they go to the miners. They are these huge organizations. They invest a lot of money. They have a lot of equipment, big premises, lots of staff. And if there's a court order, they can compel the miners to not mine transactions or to create a transaction that then sends Bitcoin to a law enforcement or something like that. So that was and that is how Bitcoin was created, to be something that could be regulated. And Samson basically just drops that in and inadvertently it says as much.
He actually exposed the fact that, they're not as unconfiscatable or unstoppable as they claim.
So then they talk about e-gold, and e-gold was another cryptocurrency or another digital currency that was created before Bitcoin, and that was shut down. But why was it shut down? Because they were trying to make an anonymous currency. And one important thing about Bitcoin is that it is not anonymous.
It's not,
It is pseudonymous, which means that you can trace transactions. And so in the documentary, they say, well, look, Satoshi is staying hidden because the guys who created these other cryptos, eGold or Liberty Reserve, they all got arrested. But why did they get arrested? Because they were facilitating money laundering and terrorist financing and anonymous transactions through their system.
Those are facts they want to overlook.
Yes. So again, they are now saying Bitcoin is supposed to be the same kind of thing. It is also a crypto that is anonymous and all that. And so Satoshi Nakamoto, aware of all these other cryptos that got shut down, he can't reveal himself, because if he does, he's going to be arrested like these guys. But they have made that false analogy. Bitcoin was not meant to be anonymous.
It was not. It's stated in the white paper.
That's right. It's meant to be pseudonymous, traceable, public, transparent. But when we say public, of course, we don't mean every transaction is revealed. The privacy is built into the way transactions are created. You don't reuse addresses. And of course, as Satoshi said, identity is firewalled from the blockchain, meaning that the identity is not in the blockchain, but is linked through accountable institutions like Centbee. So now, of course, Samson is now carrying on talking about Bitcoin and Satoshi's holdings. They need to explain this. Why is it that we don't need to be concerned about Satoshi Nakamoto and his million Bitcoins, holding it as a threat over nations? If nations start adopting Bitcoin and it turns out Satoshi holds the most Bitcoin, that's a lot of power. So these guys, Samson Mow and his buddies, they have to try and explain it away. He'll make all sorts of assumptions. He'll say something like Satoshi doesn't want to hold it over governments as a threat.
It's quite funny how they speak like they know him.
Yes. You see, everything they say about him, they have to come up with a theory that fits with their agenda and their goals. So these guys in BTC, they don't want Satoshi appearing. They don't want him threatening them with his huge stash. Samson Mow is going around advocating to prime ministers and presidents for them to start investing in mining setups and to buy BTC as a reserve. So one of the important things about that sales pitch is don't worry about Satoshi. You know, this mysterious creator, he's not a threat, he's dead, he doesn't want to ruin everything for us. They have all this wishful thinking that just comes out so obviously, and you can be sure that the guys that they're trying to sell BTC to, the presidents and the rich guys, you know, they can see through it. The only way you won't see through this is if you are actually holding BTC and have that same wishful hope.
Yeah, it's more that, Mr. G, because you have to. It's more like a belief system that you're entrenched in, and there's no any other way.
And then what Samson says in the documentary is that if he knew who Satoshi was, he would keep it a secret. This is a very important thing about the BTC community, is they believe that, like I said, that first of all, Satoshi shouldn't be known.
Yeah.
Because if he is known, it could create a huge risk.
He's a threat to their pockets.
They are committed to this idea of Satoshi remaining mysterious and unknown. So, of course, they will say, if I knew who Satoshi was, I wouldn't tell anybody.
Even in terms of just a mere follower who's looking at these guys, how do you believe and trust everything they say?
Remember, there's a cypherpunk mentality here.
Yeah.
These guys, they really believe they're fighting a war. They feel like they're fighting a war against the man. And the man represents the financial system, the oppressive governments who tell us what to do, what to spend our money on, and they control us. So they've got a religious war that they are fighting.
Yeah.
And one of the most important things for them is to make sure that nobody comes after Satoshi.
Yeah.
Not because they care about him.
Yeah.
They often say, we don't care about actually Satoshi because he's irrelevant.
Yeah.
We are all Satoshi, they'll say.
Yeah.
But they want to make sure that the threat of Satoshi is under wraps.
Eliminated, yeah.
And so they will say things like, if I knew who Satoshi was, I wouldn't tell anybody, because they don't want him to be known. Because as soon as he is known, they think that's going to destabilize this whole system.
But Ms. G, these guys, they're always slipping, man. You can always pick it up, even in whether it's interviews or such documentaries. Him saying that clearly shows how much of a dishonest man he is.
The irony here is that he'll say that he wouldn't tell anybody if he knew who Satoshi was.
Yeah.
But every one of these guys will have their opinion, and they say, oh, I think it's this guy, or Adam Back, or somebody, or Nick Szabo, or Hal Finney. They all have their opinions, and they'll express their opinions, but on the other side, they'll say, actually, I wouldn't tell you if I did know. Let's speak out of both sides of their mouth.
It's crazy.
So then the documentary shifts over into talking about this guy, Adam Back. Now, the reason why Adam Back is important is because in the white paper that Satoshi published, he references something about Adam Back. Adam Back, it was also a cryptographer, and he was involved in a project called Hashcash. And Satoshi was trying to find people that he could reference in the white paper.
Yeah.
And so Adam Back was reached out by Satoshi Nakamoto. This is public knowledge. And Satoshi had some correspondence, sent him some emails. And eventually, as we all know now, if you go look at the Bitcoin white paper, you'll see Adam Back is referenced on this white paper. And so a lot of people have thought about Adam Back as being a really important person now in this whole Bitcoin space.
Sure.
Because we don't have Satoshi anymore.
But this guy's here. And
but
he's
we've
referenced.
Got this guy,
Yeah.
and he has a cryptography background, and he's been involved in this kind of stuff. And Satoshi apparently was inspired by him and what he did. And so he has now risen to prominence in this BTC world. Funny enough, though, when you watch the documentary, they show how Adam Back didn't believe in Bitcoin at first. And this is also actually public knowledge. It wasn't that Satoshi Nakamoto communicated with him in 2009, 2010, and then Adam Back dived in and was getting into Bitcoin. It took years later for Adam Back to realize, oh, Bitcoin's a real thing. He didn't think it would work. It was only when Bitcoin was quite valuable, quite expensive, that Adam Back appeared on the forums and started posting and demonstrated a lot of cluelessness. And there's quotes in this documentary about how Adam Back didn't understand Bitcoin at all. But because of his connection to the white paper, he has really risen to prominence now in the whole BTC world. And what happened was he raised a lot of money and co-founded this company called Blockstream. And Blockstream is a very prominent company now with lots of investment, who has hired basically all of the Bitcoin developers who are working on the Bitcoin BTC project. And so he is their boss, and he is involved with trying to develop technology to scale BTC. But a lot of people think he is Satoshi because he is the closest thing there is to Satoshi. He's a very prominent person and has been identified as a potential candidate, but of course he will deny it. So this is trying to paint the picture of Satoshi as a cypherpunk, meaning that he must be part of the cypherpunk crowd. Because remember, digital cash has been a project that cypherpunks have been trying to figure out for years. And so in their mind, this is what Bitcoin is about. It's a cypherpunk tool, so therefore Satoshi must be a cypherpunk. These are the prominent cypherpunks. So the filmmaker is trying to now find out which of these guys could be Satoshi.
Cool. You guys remember that Centbee wallet is not a cypherpunk tool, yo. This is the coolest wallet you could ever get. Just download it, check it out, explore the power of BSV, yo. Mobile money on fire.
So then that's where the documentary goes. It starts talking about the cypherpunks trying to create permissionless money. It brings up guys like Wade Dyer and David Chalm and those guys. So you can just see how this documentary is very neat in terms of trying to paint a picture of Satoshi Nakamoto as somebody who wanted to create cypherpunk money. That is the misconception, the biggest misconception about Bitcoin. Of course, if you are looking for an inventor who is a cypherpunk, you're going to be trying to find Satoshi Nakamoto amongst the cypherpunks.
Definitely.
Again, it speaks to what these guys want. They don't want Bitcoin being regulatory compliant, digital cash. That is not what they want. They want that cypherpunk dream of a digital currency that is unstoppable, unconfiscatable. And so that's why the cypherpunks are the ones that are really advocating for this idea of BTC as an anonymous, decentralized system.
The cool part, Mr. G, is the fact that Satoshi didn't just come up with this idea like from thumb sucking. There were previous attempts.
Plenty.
You know, so I think he studied all of that. He tried to understand all these concepts that were implemented and actually apply the real world use case, you know, versus a cypherpunk mindset, because BSV benefits everyone.
You see, every one of these attempts at creating a digital currency before by these cypherpunks failed. Why? Because they all tried to create an anonymous system. You see, they weren't thinking about regulation and compliance. They were trying to create a system that couldn't be controlled. They wanted a cypherpunk encrypted payment system. And so every one of them got shut down. So it just shows you that you can't build a system that is unstoppable, that no such thing exists. These systems that happened before, like Liberty Reserve and eGold, they were shut down. The founders were discovered and the guys running the operations were arrested. This is a fundamental difference from what Bitcoin was, the way Satoshi devised it, and the cypherpunk dream of a decentralized currency. Bitcoin was not meant to be anonymous. That is the most important difference between Bitcoin, the real Bitcoin, and these anonymous systems like Monero and Zcash.
All of them.
They have failed in the past. They are going to fail forever in the future.
Forever, Mr.
And the only kind of payment system that will exist is one that follows the rules around payments, traceability and governance and regulation.
And that's the thing, Mr. G, because that's what people misunderstand. But Satoshi implemented rules that apply in the world, in the financial world, in how money moves, how the law works. This is how it should be.
Roger Ver, who is a very well-known crypto Bitcoin advocate, he's not really interested in Satoshi's vision as much as he's interested in creating an anonymous currency.
Roger's a sellout, man.
You know, he's an anarchist. You know, he calls himself a libertarian, but he wants a world where people can just transact and buy anything they want and sell anything they want. This is not going to happen. If you think that there is a cryptocurrency where you can do anything you like, you're dreaming.
Yeah, really.
Then the documentary brings up Peter Todd. And Peter Todd is an early Bitcoin developer. He was responsible for programming the replace by fee function into Bitcoin. The problem with BTC was that because there were limited block sizes and only a certain number of transactions that could be processed, it meant that the fees were going really high. So what would happen is if you created a Bitcoin transaction, Bitcoin BTC, and it had a low fee, then it would just sit in what's called the mempool. In other words, just a little holding area on the miners. And it would just sit there, and the miners wouldn't take that transaction and put it into a block because the blocks are limited in size. What would happen is somebody would create a transaction and it would be broadcast to the network, but then it would just sit floating around waiting for a miner to pick it up. And if every transaction that comes in has a higher fee, then that transaction of yours is going to sit there forever. And what did BTC do? Because they didn't want to increase the block sizes. Remember, they think that's going to increase centralization. So they said, tell you what, let's figure out a way to rebroadcast that transaction. And this was one of the most important and fundamental changes to Bitcoin. You could then rebroadcast that transaction. You could make that the first transaction invalid, and then you could rebroadcast the transaction with a higher fee, which means that then a miner might pick it up. And so this function was replaced by a fee, and Peter Todd was the guy who was responsible for that. And so that's why he is also now considered one of the important people in BTC. And because it was an important change that they found needed to happen, he is now acknowledged as being a very critical person. And of course the documentary really starts digging into his past with his background. He's quite young, and so when Bitcoin came along, he wasn't that old, probably not much more than a teenager, a student. He did have correspondence with Adam Back, and so this documentary now is trying to see if Peter Todd fits the profile of Satoshi Nakamoto. Peter Todd says if he was Satoshi, he would have destroyed all the traces of his identity and who he was. And again, that just speaks to that whole idea of them thinking that Satoshi is the kind of person who doesn't want to be known. He wants to be untraceable. Anonymous, because if somebody finds out who he is, they're going to try and steal his Bitcoins, or they're going to try and arrest the guy. And every person that they interview in this that's related to BTC, they all have that concept that Satoshi doesn't want to be known. He wants to hide his traces. And so the digital footprint, they say, you can't really find much about who Satoshi was. And they think this was intentional. There's no way now to go and find a digital trace back to who Satoshi was. Now, Peter Todd, being Canadian, they say that Satoshi Nakamoto in his writings would use UK English spelling. They're starting to zero in on this guy, Peter Todd, trying to pick apart his background, and it seems that the filmmaker becomes fixated on this idea of Peter Todd being Satoshi. What comes across in this documentary is all these guys that they deny they're Satoshi. They're not trying to say they are Satoshi, but yet because of this whole idea of, well, Satoshi would probably want to hide himself and wouldn't want to expose himself, so he's gone through great lengths to obscure his identity. So much so that even if guys like Adam Back, who just seemed so clueless on the Bitcoin Talk forums about Bitcoin when he first started posting in 2013, they will use that as an example or a reason why he is Satoshi, because he comes across as so clueless. That seems like the kind of thing Satoshi would do to hide who he is. If you want to pretend that you're not Satoshi and you act stupid, people might say, oh, he can't be Satoshi because he doesn't know anything about Bitcoin.
You're playing dumb.
But it just shows, when it comes to all these guys, they have this story made up in their heads that Satoshi is trying to conceal himself. And even if he appears and is one of these people that are still working in the space, he's going to say things that make sure that people don't discover him. Peter Todd and Adam Back have this conversation, and Peter Todd saying, when you first came onto the Bitcoin Talk forums, you were clueless, you knew nothing, but that sounds like just something what Satoshi would do to hide his real identity.
But ironically, they really don't know anything, these guys, regarding their true protocol.
Then the documentary goes into Adam Back, into his co-founding of Blockstream. They talk about the history of that, and what's very revealing in the documentary is how Adam Back was starting to employ all the original developers, the guys who were taking over from Satoshi, and he was employing them in this new company, Blockstream. And there's a revealing conversation between Peter Todd and Adam Back, where Peter Todd says, at first, we decided that I wouldn't work for Blockstream, because if I did work for Blockstream, we would have everyone. And what he means by that is that all the developers that were working on Bitcoin would all be working for this one company. And of course, remember, the whole idea around Bitcoin is that it's decentralized.
Yeah.
And this is a clear centralizing effect. And in fact, even today, a lot of the developers still are working for this one company. But the idea of Blockstream, they say, was to fix the technical problems of Bitcoin. Now, remember, what happened with Bitcoin is that they decided, these BTC developers, to make changes, but also enforce that block size limit. And so with a block size limit, it meant that transactions were expensive and the system couldn't scale.
Yeah.
And so Adam Back came in and said, we are going to form this Blockstream company so we can create new technology to be able to scale Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Because they think that Satoshi Nakamoto failed, that he couldn't figure out how to scale Bitcoin. But the only reason why Bitcoin couldn't be scaled is because they enforced the 1 megabyte block cap.
Yeah.
So this was a self-imposed issue that just neglected Satoshi's plans and the way that he devised Bitcoin for scalability. And they wanted to now build all sorts of new technology to scale Bitcoin and, of course, commercialize that technology and make money.
Yeah.
Blockstream is quite open that what they want to do, their business model, is to sell side chains or scalability solutions so that Bitcoin can remain small and expensive, and then people can use Bitcoin on these other technologies, these other networks, and we've discussed Lightning in the past. So it was just interesting how they reveal that Blockstream has become that company that has now taken over the reins, the stewardship of BTC, and hired all these guys and these developers to try and sell other solutions to the problems that they themselves have created in Bitcoin.
Yeah. Because essentially it is like that. BSV blockchain is perfect as it is, Mr. G. All that's needed is literally utility as building on top of it.
Yeah.
And that's why we have the Centbee wallet.
That's right. The protocol of Bitcoin in BSV is perfect.
Yeah.
It's set in stone. You don't need to make one single change to it. In fact, if you make a change to the protocol, you ruin it.
Yeah.
But what needs to happen now is to implement that protocol. And so the work being done right now is on a technical level in terms of the software and the systems to now implement that protocol. The foundation is stable, the protocol is done, the protocol is perfect. It's just now we need to be able to implement the rules of that protocol. What's happening with Terranode, building out the node technology to be able to facilitate millions of transactions per second, that's just a tech problem. Not a protocol problem.
It's not a protocol problem,
Nero Rubini comes on and he says he is Satoshi. The biggest critic of Bitcoin is the inventor himself. The reason why I want to highlight this is because the real Satoshi, who we definitely are going to come across in a few minutes on this documentary, Craig Wright, Dr. Craig Wright, he is definitely the biggest critic of BTC in the world.
It's till to date, Mr. G.
Yes.
He's still active.
And so if you think of BTC as being Bitcoin, then yes, the inventor of Bitcoin is definitely the biggest critic of BTC.
Yeah, straight up. Because, I mean, it doesn't adhere to his original protocol, so definitely he must be the biggest critique.
Yes, and Nuriel as well. I mean, Nuriel knows BTC is useless and is a scam, and he calls it out as it is. Mr. Rubini and Satoshi Nakamoto are very similar, kindred souls.
I think there's some wisdom to be picked up from the boomers.
Yes. A very important theme as well throughout this documentary is this idea of Satoshi's coins. We've said it, that if he comes along and he dumps his coins on the market, it's going to completely destroy it. And this is the biggest risk to people who are interested in BTC. They can't have Satoshi out there as a risk. And the documentary gets into this idea of burning coins. And all that means is making your coins unspendable, not physically burning them. Another guy, Dan Held, comes on and he says this is an important thing because it would remove the one uncertainty that exists. Satoshi Nakamoto being anonymous, being disappeared, not resurfacing is great, but the question of his coins, it can't be just pushed under the carpet.
Can't be, Ms. G. I mean, what happens then if he actually comes out and spends them?
So it's such a great risk. And in fact, even Coinbase have said that Satoshi Nakamoto coming back onto the scene would be a major risk to their business. because that would create market uncertainty. It's listed in their investor prospectus. One of the risks to Coinbase's business is Satoshi Nakamoto.
It's crazy.
And discovering the identity. Because, if he comes back and he starts speaking, and we all know how markets work, it just words can affect something. Because it's all, remember, there's no fundamentals here, it's all just sentiment. And so this idea of Satoshi Nakamoto, if he came back and said, you guys are all fools, BSV is the real Bitcoin, it's going to have a massive impact on the market.
That would be chaotic, Mr. G.
Hugely chaotic. So for people in crypto, specifically people in BTC, if they did know who Satoshi was, I'm pretty sure these guys would want to go and lock him up. And
no, straight up, Mr. G. I mean, for the fact that there's these lawsuits that are unnecessary, you can clearly see that they are against the actual originator.
Yes, and the documentary moves on to Craig Wright, but Craig Wright speaking the way he does when talking about himself being Satoshi Nakamoto, that is a major risk, because just imagine if people start believing him and he says, sorry, BTC is not Bitcoin, BSV is Bitcoin, people will trade that.
And also, Ms. G, the argument is also lost in trying to decipher the identity of Satoshi. Yet it should be about the technology more than anything.
Not if you are hoping that his coins are lost. It's the coins. The coins are the problem. And this is what they want to eliminate. A game of hopium. That Satoshi doesn't spend his coins or one day appear and call them out for being fools. And
the keyword also I picked up here is temptation. Because them being in that position, they wouldn't resist.
When you watch Nouriel Roubini, again, if you are into BTC and crypto, you hate him. Because truth hurts. But when you just listen to what he says, and he talks about crypto being a cult in the documentary, I mean, he nails it.
It does.
It starts off with idealistic people, and this is the history of Bitcoin. It started off with idealistic people thinking about low-cost digital cash, and then he says greed kicks in. And then you start becoming a fanatic.
He literally laid it out in steps, how it actually begins to how it actually ends.
He just talks about that whole cultish mindset. And we've had a show about Bitcoin being a cargo cult, Bitcoin being a religion. Nouriel Roubini just says it straight out. He gives you, as you say, the logical steps from idealism to greed to cultish fanaticism. And that is exactly where crypto is today. It is just one big greedy cult. And Satoshi Nakamoto is revered as this prophet, and yet he is the greatest risk to all of this.
How ironic, eh?
When you have a cult like crypto, because there isn't any technology that's underpinning this thing, there's no fundamental value there. It's so important to have the perception of value. And so the perception of value comes from the people that you are meeting and
affiliations, straight up.
Affiliations, as you say.
The groups.
The hype. This whole documentary is trying to create a mystery. They're grasping at straws. It's all got to do with fluff.
It's all fluff.
That's what this industry is. It's all the sizzle without the steak.
Then this is the real BSV plug, guys. Remember to subscribe, show some love, Mobile money on fire.
And then finally, the documentary brings up Craig Wright.
I was actually wondering if they are going to bring him up.
I know, I was actually quite surprised. The thing about Craig Wright, though, is you can't ignore him. If you're trying to create a documentary about who is Satoshi Nakamoto and you leave Craig Wright out, then you've got half the story.
True, that's so true, man.
Whether you believe Craig Wright is Satoshi or not. So they introduced Craig Wright, and of course, what's very interesting about Craig Wright is that he is the only person ever to seriously say that he is Satoshi Nakamoto.
Admitted.
Every one of these people in this documentary that they interview, they outright say no. We're not Satoshi. And in fact, even if we knew who Satoshi was, we wouldn't say who he was.
And besides, we picked up from their side that none of them is actually confident to own up to it.
Yes, or competent.
Or competent, actually, that's the word. It's more competency than anything.
Yes, he came outright and he said, I am Satoshi.
Some people will believe, some people won't. And to tell you the truth, I don't really care.
But you can say, hand on heart to me, I am Satoshi Nakamoto.
I was the main part of it. Other people helped me.
Why have you decided to identify yourself as Satoshi Nakamoto?
I didn't decide. I had people decide this matter for me. And they're making life difficult, not for me, but my friends, my family, my staff. I have staff here in London, I have staff overseas, and they want to be private. They don't want all of this to affect them. I don't want money, I don't want fame, I don't want adoration, I just want to be left alone.
Now, of course, it wasn't just out of the blue. Craig Wright was pressured and was being doxxed and all this kind of stuff. He had a few interviews, and straight up on camera, he was asked a question, and there it is in the documentary, are you Satoshi Nakamoto? And if you go and watch that interview, he says there, I was the main part of it, and other people helped me.
And nobody has ever came across or forth to admit that they are Satoshi.
He is the only person who has said that he is Satoshi Nakamoto. You've got to think to yourself, either he's lying, or he's a lunatic, he's mad, or he's telling the truth. It's got to be one of those three things. And so what's so interesting about Craig Wright is, first of all, he is the antithesis of what crypto believe to be Satoshi. He's not this hooded hacker cypherpunk. If you go and look at Craig Wright's background, not only is he so academically proficient with so many accreditations, he's got master's degrees, he's got PhDs, multiple PhDs.
He's super well polished, Mr. G.
He's even had a background in law enforcement. He's traced criminals online.
Cybersecurity and stuff.
He's a secure cybersecurity expert. He's got qualifications in law, in economics and finance.
People must check out his content, Mr. G, because there's plenty of sort of evidence to actually verify.
There's so much evidence. There's an embarrassment of riches when it comes to Craig Wright. There's so many videos and masterclasses around Bitcoin. But the thing about him is that he is BTC's worst nightmare.
Nemesis.
If he turns out to be Satoshi Nakamoto, and people acknowledge him as Satoshi Nakamoto, he is the great threat that everyone in crypto and BTC is concerned about. Coinbase, when Coinbase said that the greatest threat to their business is Satoshi Nakamoto, it's Craig Wright as Satoshi Nakamoto. Craig Wright comes out and he says, you guys are all fools. You guys have stolen my invention. You've changed and corrupted Bitcoin. This is not what I imagined and what I intended. And you guys are all fools and losers, and I'm coming to get you. And so what's so interesting about this documentary is that they spend so little time on Craig Wright.
I knew it.
Because you can see from this whole documentary that they have that cypherpunk agenda and cypherpunk mentality. And the filmmaker, he has this picture of Satoshi Nakamoto in his head, which has been provided to him by all the cypherpunks in BTC. And so the crazy thing about this documentary is that they spend a couple minutes on him. And of course, there's been some court cases, and there was a big court case in London where a judge said that the evidence wasn't enough to prove that Craig Wright was Satoshi, the evidence that was presented him. And this is a court case now that is going into appeal. So the whole world has said, well, Craig Wright is a fraud. They call him fake Toshi. They don't want this guy at all because he is their worst nightmare.
He is.
And so they are going to say everything and do everything that they can to discredit him. And of course, even in this documentary, the filmmaker is so clueless that he doesn't realize that he's finally, stumbled onto somebody who is probably the most likely candidate, and yet he just brushes by.
And I guess also, like you were saying, Mr. G, sometimes it's them wanting to fit their leader into a certain category. So
Exactly.
Craig doesn't fit none of that.
Yes,
so
exactly.
He can't be Satoshi. They would straight up deny it because he doesn't fit any cypherpunk qualities.
That's right. In fact, Craig Wright is outspokenly anti-cypherpunk. Everything that he does is trying to expose the anarchists and the cypherpunks. He thinks that there's nothing good about hiding information, at least from government, or specifically, very importantly, hiding financial transactions from the government. And he's an advocate of BSV and Bitcoin as a transparent payment system. He wants criminals to be traced and tracked. That's what Bitcoin does. It exposes criminals. And this is completely the opposite of what the cypherpunks want. They don't want it to be exposed.
That's why they saw it eligible for Silk Road, whether it's WikiLeaks. Those type of transactions, but nobody's actually thinking about your day-to-day transactions, peer-to-peer transactions. And he thought of that ahead of time anyway.
They carry on with the documentary. They get their opinions from Roger Ver and Adam Back. They say that he's very convincing on the surface, but when you start digging, there's inconsistencies. If you just look at his background and you look at his qualifications and you look at the work that he continues to do to this day, he is a very important figure. He has a company, N-Chain, which has got the largest patent portfolio in Bitcoin in the world, or one of the highest numbers.
I think it is like the biggest machine. I mean, even some patents pending.
These guys will talk about inconsistencies, but they won't talk about the elephants, the multiple elephants in the room, about his competencies and what he is continuing to advocate for today, which is the Bitcoin Satoshi's vision of Bitcoin. Isn't it ironic that Craig Wright is the only public person out there advocating for Satoshi's vision? It sounds like he's in favor of and wants what Satoshi wanted. So they seem pretty aligned.
Yeah, definitely. And it was also quite a bit disappointing when it comes to Roger Ver, because from back in the day, you would assume like he was for the original protocol.
He wanted digital cash. He wanted low cost, massively scalable cash, but he doesn't want the traceability. Roger Ver is an outspoken anarchist. Yeah. He wants people to have what he calls economic freedom, to be able to buy whatever they want, sell whatever they want, earn money however they want. He wants it to be anarchistic. He doesn't want there to be controls in place.
Mr. G, if there's no control, we know what's going to go down there.
And this is why Roger Ver and Craig Wright fell out. Yeah. And very importantly, Roger Ver was the most prominent person on the Bitcoin Cash side of the Bitcoin forks. Yeah. And Roger Ver is trying to make Bitcoin Cash more of an anarchist tool, something that allows anonymous transactions. And that's why Craig Wright and Roger Ver fell out, because Craig Wright is saying, no, don't make changes to the protocol. Satoshi's protocol is fixed. It's set in stone. And that's when Bitcoin Cash and BSV fell out. Yeah. So Roger Ver's got a little bit butthurt from that. We don't really get further into this now that they've brushed aside Craig Wright and picked up the smell of the red herrings.
The funny thing is that there isn't much to it, because if you actually look at the BTC side, there isn't really much to talk about there.
This documentary, the idea is that we're trying to find and get closer to who Satoshi Nakamoto is. Who is the real Satoshi Nakamoto? The documentary then ends with Peter Todd. The filmmaker is trying very hard to connect Peter Todd to the Satoshi figure. Yeah.
Connecting dots that don't connect.
And then, of course, an important thing that the filmmaker says is that Peter Todd tried to finish Satoshi's thought. Satoshi wrote a post, and then Peter Todd replied afterwards as though finishing his sentence, but then forgot to log out the Peter Todd account and log back into the Satoshi account. So, he's trying very hard to find somebody. Yeah. And so this filmmaker has got to end this movie somehow. He's got to give
a conclusion. Yeah.
You don't want to sit through the end of this, and this documentary is supposed to reveal the Satoshi. So you got to give us something. So he draws these threads together, and eventually that's how he leaves it.
It's all cringy, Mr. G, because how do you go down in history as someone who documented such crap, man?
Well, this is just the nature of crypto right now. There's so much speculation, and people don't want the actual truth of things. They want their truth. There's been such a big story now concocted around the Satoshi myth, this myth of Satoshi being this anarchist who wants to bring down the system, a myth that is very appealing to a lot of people, especially people who've witnessed things like the financial crisis. Everyone's sick of this whole system, and they all are hoping and praying that Bitcoin can be the solution to that. Yeah. There's the guys say, Michael Saylor, Max Kaiser, Bitcoin fixes everything. They want this to be the solution to all these problems that they find in the world. Yeah. And the story of Bitcoin, it fascinates people, and of course the myth of Bitcoin, this tool that can bring about freedom, free us from the tyranny of government. It's just so appealing and so fantastic. And so anything that will try and speak against that and bring people down from the clouds that they got their heads in.
You're a prophet of doom right there.
You're just awful. Like, Muriel, shut up. Peter Schiff, shut up. Craig Wright, shut up. We don't want your truth.
But what sucks, Mr. G, is that there's no ground for constructive argument or debate. It's all about just shoving people to the corner if they don't agree with what they are pushing.
Yes, that's how you deal with this space. If somebody is speaking against what you're saying, you don't want to hear them, you want to shut them up. They want to shut Craig Wright up, because if Craig Wright is telling the truth, if Bitcoin is not meant to be an anarchist tool, and if Bitcoin SV is the true Bitcoin, this is going to destroy a lot of dreams,
a lot of businesses,
a lot of people, speculators. I mean, it's going to destroy Michael Saylor.
All these exchanges again.
BlackRock, they're also now into this whole thing with ETFs. All that is going to come crashing down if the real Satoshi stands up and speaks out against all that. And so Craig, if he is Satoshi, which it seems more likely every single day, you know, his background and all the work that he's done and his credentials, you realize that this documentary, there was a glimmer there for a second. When Craig Wright pops up on the screen, you think, aha, they're getting closer. But unfortunately, that trail is dropped and they eventually get stuck down another rabbit hole with Peter Todd. I want to offer some advice to Mr. Cullen Hoback, the creator of this documentary. I'm going to suggest that you make a part 2 of this documentary. And instead of getting stuck down rabbit holes and drawing tenuous links between facts here and there, trying to paint a picture of who could be the real Satoshi, why don't you go and dig down deeper into Dr. Craig Wright? And maybe you can redeem yourself after this pretty much waste of an hour and 40 minutes trying to dig into the creator of Satoshi. For about 30 seconds there, I saw there was a little bit of, you know, reality that was peeking through. But unfortunately, it just got dropped. So I'm definitely going to suggest to Mr. Hoback that he goes and does a little bit more homework and a little bit more research. And if you want to make a name for yourself, Cullen, and you want to be known as the guy who finally exposed Satoshi Nakamoto, go check out Dr. Craig Wright. And you might become famous after all. If not, and if this is your legacy, guess what? It's going to be long forgotten and probably brought up one day as an example of how so many people were misguided.
Because I was saying, for me, I find it a little bit cringy because, you know, as a content creator, especially if you're creating docies, you want to like share the truth. So if you're going to go down in history as just someone who was just sharing fluff, that's not a good look.
No, it's not a good look.
Sure. Thanks for that, Mr. G. Yeah, that was pretty awesome. At least we know who the real Satoshi is.
Yes.
Yeah, so yeah, guys, just check out the documentary. Have your own view on it. But yeah, here we support BSV, and that's the only Bitcoin we recognize.
Satoshi's vision.
Straight up, Mr. G. Yeah, we're going to be stepping into this week's socials. Yeah, our first one comes from Circus Road. And they're saying, awesome, guys. So good to have the CB show, the Centbee Show, a very valuable resource.
Thanks, Circus Road. Thanks for the great comment. We appreciate it. Thanks for watching.
Cool. Sure. Thanks, Circus. Yeah. Our second one comes from David Streets. And they're saying, you are spot on.
Yes. And when it comes to Satoshi Nakamoto, we do think we're pretty spot on. There's only really one candidate in town.
Straight up, Ms. G.
Yes.
I have no doubts.
Yes.
I have no doubts. The proof is in the work.
That's right. Exactly. CSW.
Plenty. Yeah, there's plenty.
What a guy.
Yeah, thanks, David. Yeah, our third one comes from 301 Jim. And they're saying, brothers, hope you hold some BTC just in case you were wrong.
Yes. You can't put all your eggs in one basket, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of people do is they want to spread their risk. But when you know the truth, when you know the reality of what's going on,
there's no plan B.
Then you don't have to spread your risk.
Yeah.
You can put all your risk in one basket and be confident what's going to be happening.
The only plan.
But that being said, it's not about investing.
Yes.
We always say, don't invest. You're not investing in BSV. You're not investing in crypto. You know, the only way you can invest in this space is by actually learning information and going and putting the work in. You know, you that's your investment. Your work is your investment.
Definitely.
Not just holding some crypto and then waiting for it to go up. You're going to wait for the cows to come home. This is about work. This is about getting up in the morning and doing something.
Yeah.
It's not just about sitting back and waiting to get rich. Proof of work.
Sure. Thanks, 301. Yeah, straight up, man. Yeah, our last one comes from Jack Lavalette. And they're saying, top show. Good content, clear, educational, important, keeping it light.
Awesome. Thanks, Jack. Great comment. That's what we are. We're here to teach you guys about Satoshi's vision.
Yep.
We want to keep your mind off the distraction of crypto and BTC. And so if you guys want to know where Bitcoin is at, the Centbee Show.
Straight up, Ms. G. You can never be mistaken. So yeah, I think we've come to the end of our show, Ms. G.
Awesome. Great. A little bit of a chore getting through that documentary.
I think we had to, though.
We had to.
Yeah.
We want to thank you guys for staying with us and tuning into the Centbee Show today. If you really want to know who Satoshi is, then forget about crypto, forget about what these BTC crypto cypherpunks are on about, and go and read that Bitcoin white paper, and then go and realize that this is not about anarchy. It's not about hiding money.
Yeah.
There's really only one candidate out there in the world who's advocating and pushing this idea of Bitcoin as Satoshi's vision of Bitcoin. There's only one candidate who sounds like Satoshi. There's only one candidate who speaks what Satoshi spoke. And if you guys are serious about getting to the bottom of this whole mystery about who is Satoshi Nakamoto, then just drop your prejudice, drop your biases, open your mind up, and go and discover that the secret sometimes is a little bit more incredible than you might at first seem. But we know who our money's on.
Straight up.
CSW out there, Dr. Craig Wright, there's nobody else like him. The way I always say it is that he's not the Satoshi we wanted, but he's the Satoshi we needed. I'm definitely behind him. I'm backing Craig Wright, Dr. Craig Wright all the way. He's the man that can do it. Can bring about Satoshi's vision, and we're excited about Bitcoin Satoshi's vision.
No fluff, just proof of work.
That's right. Cool. All right, Kage. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Kage. And thanks, crew back there. And we want to thank all you guys for tuning in today to the Centbee Show. Please come back soon. Smash. Thanks, Kage.